Hello, everybody. This is a preview of the monthly mentor chat that I have with Trader Ferg on my Substack, Geólogo Trader. I'm very lucky to have his time, and I've learned a stack off him over the last 7 years since he's been mentoring me, and I'm sure you will too. The feedback is very good from these videos, so I think I can add a ton of value, and we can add a ton of value to your investing if you do want to subscribe. It's great. I get an insight into how Ferg thinks, how he selects stocks, and what opportunities he looks for in the market. We talk about income trading. It's just really an unserious banter session as well because he's a good mate of mine. If it sounds like something you're interested in, then I'll leave a link below, and I'll also leave a link to Trader Ferg's Substack, which is probably some of the best value for your money you can get in the investing world.
G'day guys, back with Trader Ferg. I feel like it's been a while. How you going, Ferg?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Yeah, glad you're feeling better after, contracting some Peruvian viruses.
It's been a rough, what have I been in Peru for 3 weeks now. And the whole purpose of coming here was doing the Huaywash trek up in the city of Juarez. It's meant to be like the picturesque trek like in the world. It's like world class. And yeah, got 2 days in and had to turn out to the nearest town because picked up some shocking virus and the lungs were just, full of fluid. Tried to sleep that first night and probably got a half an hour in just coughing all night. And got to the gates with my friend Tom. We got to the gates, like where the hike starts for the next day. And we're like looking up at this summit where they had 25-kilo backpacks on. And we're just looking at each other and like, are we going to physically make this? Like, given how sick we are. And we just like stood there for an hour. We took all the weight out of our packs to take the bare minimum to last 11 days. So we had to carry food for 11 days. And we went to like 1 meal a day in the packs and just put them back on. And then we're just like, nah. And just
No, not happening.
bolted out to the closest town, which actually took us a whole day to walk to because we'd come in quite far. And then just parked up there for a night and then ended up getting a 9-hour bus back to the city. So what a mission. And if we had continued, I reckon I probably would have passed away. Because after that, just got crooker and crooker. As soon as we got back to the city, didn't recover, and went to the coast to try and get some more oxygen back in the system after being at 4,000 meters, and still crook, and got on antibiotics, and that cured me. But luckily we didn't continue with a hike. So eventful.
It's rough being at altitude. Yeah, everything just, your body slows down like for recovery, definitely.
Well, that's it. Like you get to Lima, and obviously Lima's at sea level, and then I spent a week at Lima, and then you're straight up to 3,500 meters, which is Juarez, the city, and you're straight up there. You can take a flight or you get a bus, and then if you're not used to altitude, it just hits you straight away, and then carry a virus or something up with you. You fucking gonna have a rough time. But that's basically my last 3 weeks anyway, mate. What have you been up to in Bali?
Oh, very little, which is kind of how I like we've tried to dial down the travel a bit after realizing it's not as enjoyable as it used to be with a very active 1.5-year-old that just screams and tears around everywhere. So we went away for my birthday up to Alila Mangus up in the top corner of or the east coast of Bali, and that was really fun. But then not having nannies, you realize how spoiled we are. Like just tearing around after the guy all day. He's just like full scream, like just full run. The holidays when you get home can
you just
relax a bit.
You just drive a car up to the mountains there in Bali.
So the following weekend we went up to Kintamani, up in the mountains. I really like going up to the mountains here, just to have a bit of a contrast. It's kind of like what I'm kind of doing with Montenegro as well in the mountains there around Jabiak. Just we don't really enjoy going like swapping sort of tropical beach for tropical beach as much because you're kind of spoiled with it. So it's nicer to have like a real heavy contrast like last year. Getting
it's
jumping in winter gear. Mm.
There's an epic contrast going, Montenegro to Bali. That's just like extremes, especially if you get like a ski season or something. If you're going for that up in the snow, and then you come back to the Bali, that's living the dream in my view. Having like two bases in like with that sort of level of contrast that's properly living.
Yeah, no, that's what we're working towards. So yeah, enjoying it. So yeah, we're just planning the last. So we got a summer Euro trip coming up in another, another month and a half. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Nice,
Jeez,
mate.
it's expensive though. Spending like 2 weeks in Greece, and holy shit.
Greece isn't even too bad because I was there last summer, and I remember like going from there to Spain and then realizing Greece is actually like you can get by pretty decent. Even going to the islands, which are popular, but it's going to be expensive anyway, especially compared to Bali. But yeah, right.
Yeah, well, I think the problem there is actually finding places as well. Some of the islands we wanted to go to are just booked out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Everyone seems to book it like a year, at least a year ahead. And so Mia and we kind of like have a game of chicken with who has to do the admin for it, and then invariably have to do it last minute and get punished.
No. So I swear those places can be awesome, especially like Greek islands in shoulder season, because you just get more availability.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit cooler, and just a little bit less of that hustle. But yeah, bloody, I wish I was getting over there this year. I don't reckon I will. Argentina's actually, I just saw a map. It's going to have its coldest winter on record. They predict they've just had the coldest May. There's almost snow in Buenos Aires, like, which is crazy. Almost. There has
Okay.
been before, but
Wow.
talking to my girlfriend, she's just saying it's looking like a pretty grim winter there. So I'll have to probably get out to the mountains and try some skiing, I reckon.
Definitely.
I'm thinking Esquel, which is like a little Patagonian town, a little bit less popular than like the Bariloches, which is like the main sort of ski city in Patagonia in Argentina. There's one.
Yeah.
Esquel's about 4 hours to the south, beautiful and a little bit cheaper as well, actually. So I'm thinking that might be my winter escape instead of going over to Europe.
Nice. Do it. I'd love to like compare notes on costs versus like Montenegro. Yeah. Being like pricing, like the mountain there versus
Probably be well, just because Argentina's just got so damn expensive in the last few months or the last year. But this time last year, my mates had a ski trip planned and in Bariloche, the main ski city, and they reckon it was just like a third or something the price of like skiing in France or something. But I think
that's not hard.
no. I think it's dramatically increased this year. I'm expecting it to be very expensive indeed. But looking forward to getting out there. I'm looking forward to get back to Argentina. Actually, I've been nearly over a month in Peru, and still happy that I made that choice to live in Argentina because, Peru's one of those places where it's good to visit, but I can't imagine staying long term here. It just doesn't really tick the boxes. Arequipa, where I am now, is bloody beautiful. It's like one of the nicest like historic centers I've seen in Latin America, like the Spanish historical architecture. It's really beautiful. But you walk a couple of streets out of it and you get like that classic, like ugly Peruvian, like the half finished houses with like the Rio bar sticking out of them just everywhere. And it hits you in the face. You're just like, gee, this is a very ugly place to set up. Not saying anything bad about the Peruvians because they are lovely and the food is also epic here. But for me, I'm bloody glad I chose to set up in Argentina coming back here.
Yeah, don't blame me. Yeah, just it's important that with like kind of enjoying where you live, especially with Argentina. Just got so much history, as you say. It's so beautiful. It almost seemed wrong that it was that cheap with that sort of infrastructure as well.
Well, that's what you forget. Like it was, like you just got to travel to a few of these countries like Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, parts of Brazil, and you just realize that actually the southern cone part of South America is it's just much nicer, much nicer to look at, much better quality of life. I think, even though they've got their terrible economic issues, it just ticks a lot of boxes in other ways, and I'm looking forward to getting back next week. Yeah, mate. want to kick off the chat with uranium. I know we just talk about it a lot, but I just saw before that the boss MD Duncan Craig just sold 70% of his shares on the market, which I thought was bloody ridiculous, especially at this time. I know he's probably been in it for ages and got a lot of value out of them, and yeah, but just huge chunk of shares to sell. So I don't know if you saw that, but yeah, hey, what do you think of uranium?
I had just seen that on Twitter. I meant to dig into it a bit more because, yeah, I haven't had a chance to properly go through it. So this is an absolute, like, saw the tweet and initial thoughts. I know a lot of it was like kind of incentive based, and he could sell it once they produce their first pounds. So he's, I'd be interested to see some of the details around it. But yeah, it's not great, and but at the same time, like, I never put like a crazy amount of weight on people selling shares. Like, you never know their financial situation. You never know how much they're trying to shore up their own like risk profile. Like, I always put far more weight on people buying stock and then increasing their position. But yeah, obviously 75% is probably, that's a bit much. That's a bit on the chin. But then my mind automatically jumps to like, is that enough to start like exiting the position? Is that, and my problem with Boss is my Boss position is almost like the counterweight and risk to a lot of my weight in Namibia. So automatically I'm thinking like, am I going to realize all that tax? And then where am I going to put that capital? Because I'm not ready to start lightening up the uranium trade. This is actually a similar conversation to a few people I've just had on like NextGen, because like NextGen are also kind of taking the piss as well.
Yeah.
And it's doing dumb shit lately with essentially almost just knowing that they hold a great hand with the Arrow deposit, and just making a whole lot of bad decisions, knowing that everyone will stick with them because of the quality of the deposit, which is just bullshit as well. So the hard thing with uranium has always been the thesis is so solid and kind of getting better. Like, I've kind of got a piece of my head that I'm still been writing that's just like, when you map out all the miners, everything they're going to bring on, you still fall about a quarter short. And as by about 2030, and that's just like an absolute air pocket. And this is like the demand assumptions, the absolute sort of baseline. This is not, I could come up with far more bullish demand assumptions.
I was going to say the demand assumptions a few years ago when I first started digging into the thesis from you, it was never taking into account AI, Bitcoin mining, all this energy demand from that side of things. Does that, you think, affect the sector in a huge way in demand-wise, like in terms of like stable baseload power and maybe incentivizing I don't know, countries to adopt more nuclear power?
Well, it does. Like, you essentially have like the lobbying ability of like big tech getting behind the uranium sector, which is like fantastic. Like, they know this stuff is like crazy, like energy hungry, and there's no way around it. You're not going to run these things on solar panels and wind turbines, and they can't be seen to add coal or gas to run them either. Like, that's they can't. That they're worried about their ESG credentials, so it has to be nuclear. And like, I don't know if you've seen some of the data, like some of these, like a sizable data center, like one of the latest, that can be nearly like a nuclear plant. Like, it's ridiculous, the consumption.
Just remember, it was never sort of thought about a few years ago when you were running the numbers on, you know, the supply demand story, and then it's just developed into this huge energy consuming beast. What's going to be?
And when you get the turnarounds as well, like when you get people reversing policy that have previously stated they'll also take a reactor offline, it's not the same projection as like just a reactor running at at maintenance, because when you've got to reload the core, you need like 2 to 3 times the initial uranium in that like restart phase. And so it's actually like a real bump in demand when you first turn them back on. And so like the countries that we're seeing sort of reverse course, that's actually like really any like demand intensive, kind of like Japan, kind of like. And so I'm kind of ignoring a lot of this because I just work with my I like my big margin of safety. I just want to work with like the absolute baseline demand assumptions. But yeah, I can't make the figures work. And then I've got like a chart, like a spreadsheet, and I'm just drawing big lines through projects. Like I just drew a big line through like GoVX. Like that's not fucking happening. Maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they can reverse the whole like fuck up that it is, and maybe they get in production in 2030. But for now, like that's not happening like next year or year after or year after.
What about Arrow with next gen? Like, what are their chances of getting fully permanent there? I don't know if you know much about it, but that's obviously
they'll get it, but they won't hit their timelines. Like I can't remember what they were putting in their presentations lately, whether it was like 28 or, but there'll just be delays. There'll just be delays upon delays. Yeah, it's mining. It's hard, and it's everyone also forgets that it's not only a capital problem. It's also like a specialized labor problem. Like everyone should go and listen to a few interviews with John Borshoff and him just saying like you can't just throw money at a sector and expect all these professionals to come out of the woodwork. Like these guys are all retired and gone. Like there's very few people that have ever brought a uranium mine on, and so you can't suddenly expect there to be these specialist teams that are going to pop up and execute with a whole lot of different miners. and miners are a coin flip if they execute with a good team anyway. Like there's or maybe not a good team, but like an average team. Like the execution rates. And then there's some names, like I always draw some hate for just pointing at some companies and being like, these are just dog shit. Like kind of like Peninsula is the one. Like they're just constantly promise, and they got sold like a dog shit asset. They constantly like promise that they'll ramp it up. Everyone looks at it and it's like, oh, this is so cheap. Like I haven't missed the uranium bull run. And then that share price is around where it was like at the bottom of 2020, and that's before you bring up the dilution. I had a look at the dilution the other day, and it was like, I think it's like a 9x dilution from 2020 as well. So you're still at the same share price, and you've been diluted. And so like that's the ultimate like bag holders, like bag holder prison. Yeah, it's sticking with something like that. Which is What
do you just go through some of the names? I know you're heavily invested in, and I am too. What about Alligator Energy? They've been performing pretty shitty, I think, with this with all this excitement in uranium. They've kind of haven't gone. And you think they'll be a last mover sort of thing after sort of the Paladin sort of play out a bit more, then they'll kick into gear, like your Alligators, your Banners.
No, they've been a little bit of disappointment in that. I thought they would have got more of a bid now, but that they always represent that part of the portfolio that's more a call on like a retail frenzy. They are that realization that there needs to be additional projects brought online, and they'll benefit from that. So I still like them in the portfolio. I would have liked them to have seen them if you just map out like sport versus URNM versus URNJ. URNJ's been outperforming, so I would have liked to have believed that correlation would have pulled up Alligator as well. But I'm not too fussed, because also when these things get a bid, like I've seen Alligator do like 15% days. So just don't think you overthink it. You have it, you position size it right, and then you just try and forget you own it. It's one of the few sort of mining positions I'm prepared to do that with. Like I don't really like to have any juniors in my portfolio at all. I've been like trying to talk myself in with tin, like looking at something like First Tin, and I'm like, I can't get excited. Like still getting diluted. It's tiny. I know it'll work, but I don't want to just get watched like buying like a call option and just getting eaten alive on dilution until it eventually works. Some of these I prefer to watch them kind of break out and watch the tin price do something silly before I jump in.
I'd hate to know where I'd be if I hadn't have bloody followed you down this sort of investing trend. Especially in the space of exploration, where you just got like geologists throwing money at every shit code because they think they have an edge, and they don't. You know, like I said, you don't come across too many like wealthy geologists in the sector in Australia anyway. What I've experienced. So yeah, I know now to just keep it to a few and a tiny percentage of my portfolio. Even this stuff I'm doing with Pampa, it's still only a fraction of you know, the shares I have and the positions I have in stocks that I've got from like yourself and that cyclical investing and that have building conviction rather than, you know, the more gambling side of things. So yeah, I'd hate to know what I'd be doing if I hadn't gone down that path. I'd probably wouldn't be here actually. I wouldn't be, I know that. So yeah. No, it makes
the other thing with it is like the there's no need for that sort of stuff when we're at a point of the cycle that you can still track down real businesses that are kind of, they almost look like the junior miners chart. Like that's always kind of been one of my big takeaways from Brad is he's always looking for like functional businesses that have just had a really hard time and leaned out. That like there's a few I'm looking at in Hong Kong at the moment, and they're well run. They've got cash on the balance sheet. Like some of them are pretty heavy net cash, and they're just in a, be it like shipbuilding, be it like oil services, like with a tight correlation to like offshore drilling, say, like they're good businesses that have just had a really hard run, and they've really leaned out their operation. They've really got kind of a bit of a fortress balance sheet because they've just, every time they've anyone that was like over their skis has been taken out. So anyone that was running any leverage got cleaned out in COVID. Like we saw that. Like if you had too much debt on the balance sheet, you didn't make it through 2020 as an offshore player. Like you got cleaned out. And so only the ones that have survived have been the ones that have been a bit more conservative, or alternatively, they're the ones that have recently relisted. And so they had to do the whole restructuring. They recapped, or they actually did a proper Chapter 11. Yeah. And so when you can get stuff that cheap, there's no need to jump in junior mining.
Yeah.
Is my take.
It's good to, makes a ton of sense, to be honest. Just want to ask you, with your mentor interviews with Brad that you do on your Substack, what are your thoughts on why Brad sold out of like uranium? How, because he sold out quite a while ago, right? You've obviously stayed in. What's the what do you think about that? Just curious about it. Like,
yes, Brad's like, he likes to play the sectors. Like, so how Brad's coming at it is he's trying to form like an ETF of a sector with a lot of small positions and to get the maximum risk reward. And he does a lot of work on the macro as well. But like him and I differ is willingness to kind of like position a bit larger and really kind of I'm prepared to play stuff more into like momentum territory, whereas Brad would swap out on sort of a relative value basis. So Brad's did really well by like, he thought there was too much froth in uranium, and he was swapping out, and that real run up in like late 2021, 2022, and just seen a lot more value in offshore, and did the same with coal. And that was true at the time, but it always worried me is the fact is like, I never want to make a big judgment on what's going to be the biggest outperformer, because that scares me, because I'm like, I honestly don't know whether it'll be uranium, whether it could be some of these offshore services, whether it could be tin, whether it could be, I don't know, platinum group metals, which I'm talking about. Like I don't know where like the money will charge first. And so I always wanted to keep kind of a spread, and also tax, like jumping between sectors is pretty costly. So you got an opportunity cost with that as well. Yeah. And so, yeah. And also Brad, like Brad's within the fund he manages, he keeps a pretty even spread of them as well. So that there's a difference between what he's doing personally, where he's got higher risk tolerance and what he's doing for clients. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny when you got sort of the mental relationship, and then you kind of diverge a lot in what you're holding. Like my biggest winners have been stuff that Brad hasn't really owned much. Like I see really heavy positions in the likes of Paladin and Peabody, and Brad didn't really own them. We might have owned a bit of them, but not really. Yeah, he certainly wasn't doing what I was doing. And it's a bit of that's just like your own style. Obviously, I'm at a different stage. I needed to set myself up, whereas he's set himself up a long time ago, living on a vineyard in Melbourne. he doesn't need to sort of do what I was doing at the time. Whereas I was like, yeah, I need to set myself, get to a point that I'm far more financially comfortable. And so I knew I needed to take on a bit more risk and push it a lot harder.
Yeah, that's sort of where I'm at. I'm obviously a lot further behind you, but it's just where I see it makes the most sense to me. It's just to just size those positions and sit on the strong conviction and ride it out. And you got to create that base of wealth. Rather than just chopping and changing in and out. Makes perfect sense to me.
I think you can probably as time will go on, I'll replicate more and more of where Brad's at. It makes sense. Like in another year or two, I don't want to have any 10% positions at cost in the account ever again. I think like the highest probably moving forward from this point on will be like 5 max. Like as you kind of get a bigger capital base, you don't want to have that sort of black swan risk anymore. And then probably another 10 years on, my biggest position will probably be like 2-3%. So I just see that as like a general progression. Yeah.
So overall, just with the uranium sector, mate, you're still very bullish. You're about to write another piece on it with some more. There's a Bodog. Keep going. You're about to write another piece on it. Just basically, stating there's going to be a lot more demand than earlier models probably suggest. So looking forward to reading that.
Well, it's interesting with uranium because it's like I'm one of the people that want to be out of the trade first. Like I'm running such a heavy concentration, and I'd prefer not to be in African miners anymore. So like I'm trying to talk myself out of it, and like I kind of like coming at it that way as well, because then kind of I'll use the most conservative assumptions on all of it, and the stuff to go into is really attractive as well. So it's like kind of getting out of some of these, as I say, African miners can put the money to work, and all the stuff I kind of talked about in Moats and Cannibals, like companies with a really really high replacement cost and going to be buying back the shares. That kind of excites me as a really long runway trade with a lower risk profile.
One commodity you haven't really touched, because I just guess there's more opportunities out there, or it's not hated enough or something like that. But I want to run through it, is copper, and just get your thoughts on just the overall copper market. Basically, if what you say about EVs not having a great future, and the amount of copper wire required in EVs, does that affect the thesis? Because a lot of copper bulls are just out there, they're bullish EVs, like they're going to take over the world. This is why I'm bullish copper. What are your thoughts on copper overall?
So I'm a bull on copper in that, like I wouldn't characterize my like negativity on EVs as like being negative on copper, because whenever I talk negative EVs, I'm more like pointing towards like lithium in particular, because just so much of the future lithium supply that's been brought on is predicated on like massive adoption. So that's the one that I was like, I've just sidestepped that, and nickel and cobalt to the same extent. But with copper, you've got a far more sort of broad electrification, and with copper, you're not actually betting on battery chemistry either. So I like copper, and I like the setup with it. I just never found a good way to play it. So I had someone I really respect, which is Paulo Macro. He was pitching me on it. We like WhatsApp back and forward, and he was like saying like this setup looks great, and I was like, I agree with you that the setup looks great. This is like what are we now? This would have been like January. I was like, agree, the setup looks great, but I can't find any clean way to play it. And this is something Brad taught me like a long time ago. Like it really, like you can have bullish views on lots of stuff, but if you can't find a good way to apply the view, like kind of just move on. Like you need a super like a way to apply the view is just as important as the trade itself. And so I might have something that I'm not nearly as have as strong a view on, but the setup's just amazing. Like you can just get absolutely crazy optionality with how it's priced, and I prefer that than something that I'm super bullish on, but I just can't get any asymmetry in the trade. And so with copper, I remember I was like trying to make bull calls work on some of the on the option market on forgetting which copper companies it was, just looking at a few copper miners, and I was like, oh, I don't really want to jump into these either. And like with the whole hurdle rate, just comparing it to like, why am I paying up for this stuff when I can get so much more value and so much cheaper stuff in other areas? And so yeah, I couldn't find a good way to play it, honestly, and so I kind of passed on it.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. The only way I can think of playing it is just some of these miners which have idling resources just sitting there. Like you're talking huge resources, like billions of tons, just sitting there waiting for that price incentive, and some big mining decisions to be made to develop them. I don't know if you follow Friedman, but he's just putting up heaps of charts, supply demand fundamentals, about how many Escondidas we're going to need, which is the biggest copper mine in the world, by like 2040 or something. And it's just crazy to see that. And then that's why I like Argentina, which has that whole mountain range sitting there, and they've got bloody good copper resources sitting there. They just need that fiscal stability, and then the big decisions might get made. And every day it's looking more likely with Malay and all the discussion that's going on there with all the tax reforms in Argentina and the opening of the market. And then that's the only way I could probably think of playing it, is just looking at some of those companies like Aldebaran or the London Group up in San Juan, who've just got these resources there waiting to go, waiting for economic fiscal stability in Argentina. But obviously
I agree with that, because I like how you can find an angle within Argentina, which is a great play on copper. But in what you were just saying there, you got to read between the lines as well, with like investing is all a game of like, who doesn't understand that? What you just explained is like, there's a massive demand for copper. All the majors understand that, and there's so much capital being allocated today, which is not what you want for large future returns. You want areas where the market is saying there's no need for this, and you disagree with that. And so it's like the larger returns will not go to I'm trying to think of an example, like say Anglo-American, where they're like saying, we'll get rid of all our old economy commodities to double down on transition commodities. And as soon as you hear like kind of that sort of speak, means the stuff they're getting rid of is what's going to outperform. Like when they like spun out Fungella, like they're cutting off capital to that sector to double down on whether it's lithium, copper, nickel. Like, so there's inherently going to be a future supply response on those. Yes, the story is still compelling, even if I do question like some of the inflated demand assumptions on EVs, which have gone over at length. But I really want I want a sector where they think it's in terminal decline, and I think they're wrong. Like kind of the most recent one I've gone over is Platinum Group Metals, where you bring up North Nickel's future projections, and they're saying platinum's going to be a negative 2% growth market out to 2030, and palladium's -1% growth market out 2030, and I just think that's flat out wrong. I'll take the other side of that. And so if that's the research that's making its way around the market, then is everyone going to rush out to add sort of high cost palladium and platinum mines? Like it's not, yeah, it's like investing's a real game of like, you don't get paid for kind of agreeing with the herd, because as I mentioned, like if there's money going into the sector, that's going to inherently dial down future returns. Whereas the idea that we're going to be living on sort of solar panels, EVs, and wind turbines, and coal will be a stranded asset. That's where the real money's to be made.
Makes a ton of sense. Young, crowded trade, yeah. That's how you've made you've been successful from exactly that. So yeah, no, I have to think about it. I just enjoy digging into these companies in Argentina with the angle, and yeah, I think for the actual overall price of copper though, I think do you think it will just keep going up and keep increasing?
I think
the actual price per pound.
No, I do. I like this. This is a game of like which is the best will be the best performing commodities over the next decade. I think you win in all commodities if you're going to, like I see people like illustrate how well they've done by comparing it to like the S&P or something, and I think like whatever commodity you show, you'll probably win versus the S&P or NASDAQ or anything over a long enough time frame. It'll be like the bigger question is commodities relative to each other, and I think copper does fine. If you were to say I can only invest in like take away all the other commodities and give me copper versus the rest of the S&P, I'll be all copper. I'm just playing the game of which is going to be the best commodity within the space, and where can I apply the view the best.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. Over to offshore and oil.